Let's jump right in because we do kind of have a stacked show. So no need for pleasantries. How cooked is Clemson? Who wants to go first on this one?
I'll let Tom handle this one.
I mean, so I've been a big supporter of Syracuse going to get Steve Angeli in the portal and everything. I'm a Syracuse believer, you know. And I know they lost a fair amount of pieces, but I was like, you know what? This didn't feel like a good matchup. You know, I was like, Clemson's gonna, get back, right? The Georgia Tech loss was tough. And I was like, okay, they're gonna get back and they're gonna start looking like Clemson again. And man, it just looks like a team that doesn't care. Just something doesn't click. Yeah. I don't know what it is, if it's literally Dabo from the top down, something like that. Cade Klubnik looks very pedestrian. They just don't seem to have a lot of answers on defense, especially. That was the thing that was really telling in this game. And like we've talked so much on this show about Florida, how they have every reason to give up based on what the offense has done, but the defense just doesn't quit. And that's kind of the last literal line of defense for any football team in its totality, is that if the defense just quits, you're absolutely screwed. This defense was the first thing to quit against Syracuse. It was pretty unbelievable to see Dabo, ranting and raving during this week and then really solemn after the fact. Like, part of me, as a sicko, like enjoyed it because I think there's a lot of likable qualities to Dabo as a human being, but I at least can appreciate that he was so upset after the game, and because he cares, and he does care. I will say this, though, to any Clemson fans that watch this: beware the Bo Pelini effect, okay? We spent so much time on this show and many other shows. I'm a Penn State fan. I've been complaining about James Franklin for a long time, but it's like, man, at least I'm complaining about how he does against the top 10. It's not like, do you guys see Matt Rule's stats against the top 25? It's horrific. Anybody ranked in the AP, he consistently loses to in college football. So all that is to say, be grateful for the success that Dabo has helped create at Clemson, but 6-6 sounds like a high watermark for the Tigers this year. Cole, what do you think?
Here's what we're not going to do as a society together. We're not going to come and blame the fact that Dabo didn't go into the transfer portal and that Dabo didn't go out and add in premier players and that he hasn't been able to adjust with the times, because that's the low-hanging fruit. And you know what? Potentially, you have a point there. And I'm not going to argue with you and say that Dabo needs to continue to get with the times if he wants to be the long-term coach down in Clemson, South Carolina. But this was an attitude thing, in my opinion. This had nothing to do with not bringing in the right players via the portal. This was not about feeling that you didn't add enough at the offensive line or at the running back position. This had everything to do with how you prepared and how you responded once you were down. It felt like, once again, you were going through the motions. And that's not to say that you don't have two qualified rosters in Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Syracuse plays hard. Syracuse showed you last season they play hard. Georgia Tech is one of the most physically dominating teams in college football because of the way that Brett Key demands excellence at practice. It's an attitude thing that really feels that way. You have more talent in Clemson than you do on either sideline. But when you show up and when you learn from your mental mistakes and you don't put yourself in situations to where constantly you're going backwards, or it looks like you're going through the motions, or that your attitude adjustment just isn't fully there, and that you're not seeing many players actually want to go after a quarterback, or not be willing to go hard to bring the ball carrier down for a loss of 1 and instead of gains 2. That was the issue in the game. Clemson and Syracuse, honestly, were very evenly matched up in a lot of different ways. 29 first downs for Clemson, 24 for Syracuse. Both only had 3 third down conversions. Both very much struggled when it came to, both didn't take a lot of shots when it came to fourth down conversions. One went 1 of 5, one went 2 of 2. Both averaged around 7 yards per completion. Both ran the football about the same, 157 to 140. Both had the same amount of penalties. They lost in 2 areas. Number 1, which shows up on the stat sheet, turnovers, 2 against nothing in favor of Syracuse. And the other one is heart. They just didn't feel like that they want to be out there. And that's something that Dabo has to look internally at and say, what am I not doing to show that we cannot just butterfly and lollygag our way through these games? We need to be a more cohesive, balanced unit that punches you in the face. And if we get punched, you're lucky to get 1 jab on us. Now we're going sicko mode against you and putting you into the coma and making sure that you end up in the hospital. And that fight's not there. The fight's there in a lot of teams in the ACC. And ultimately, when you don't have a quarterback that feels like the rhythm is trending upward, when you don't have a wide receiver core that is winning its one-on-one battles, the offensive line that feels like it's taking a step back, and the defense that's allowing players to win off the line of scrimmage, the only thing that you have left is fight and heart. And right now, that's not there. What it feels like is that Clemson got told, hey, you got to play a football game on Saturday. You have to go play a football game on Saturday. Not you get to go play a football game in front of your fans in your backyard against a team that has lost games to Georgia. I mean, that lost games to Tennessee and also does not have a defense. You get to play that game. No, you have to play that game. That was the attitude, and that's what showed up on Saturday. And if that attitude doesn't change, it's not about putting more resources into the portal. It's not about adding in more players via recruiting, and it's not about bringing in top 10 classes. Those things would help. But if the attitude is still the same attitude underneath Dabo Swinney, change needs to happen. And that's where we are at this point. And Dabo, I hate to break it to you, you are right. Clemson would not be where it is without you. Clemson needs to get back to where it wants to be, with or without you, is the new slogan we got to talk about.
I will give Sleeper a little bit of love. Listen, if you're depositing, use our code CFA, get a 100% match up to $100. We will play the more or less game on Wednesday, where you pick two of your favorite picks or more. You can win up to 1,000 times your money. There are some free picks that you can go get right now. Like, I think Jared Goff has like 0.5 as an over-under for passing yards. So, supposing he doesn't get hurt on the first play of the game, you should be relatively safe there. Bunch of free picks that you can go and stack together. Check Sleeper's terms and conditions because terms of use do apply. We appreciate Sleeper for their support. Tune in on Wednesday live at noon so we can talk about our picks. And again, appreciate Sleeper for all of their support. Yeah, it mirrors so much, and it different circumstances, different situation, but it reminds me so much of what we saw at the end of the Jimbo Fisher era in Tallahassee, where, Florida State would not have been in 2016, 2017 where they were without Jimbo kind of bringing in the resurgence after the end of the Bowden years. But, man, there was a checkout on that team. And I'll tell you this, they were playing with a backup quarterback. Francois gets hurt in that opener against Bama. They play with a backup quarterback, and they had a lead against Miami and gave up a fourth down, a ranked Miami team in 2017, where if they get that fourth down stop, they kneel the ball twice and the game's over. And so there was at least fight in those Florida State teams. They just weren't very good. Jimbo had let a little bit different from the way they got there, but same kind of mindset from the coach of like, look, I'm not changing the way I do things. I don't need to adjust. I've been successful here. I'm the one that's brought the success. This Clemson team is so much more talented than that Florida State team was in 2017 and toward the end of the Jimbo years. But the brashness, the mood, the mindset of like, no, like you owe me everything, right? Like we're having a bad year, but talking down, like instead of the accountability of the ownership of like, yeah, man, we're screwing up right now and I got to fix it. It mirrors that to me, and it reminds me of that. Yeah, I don't think they're going to. I think they'll make a bowl. I mean, they still have UNC, who's a much bigger dumpster fire. They still have Boston College. They play Furman, and then they'll sneak up and win. I would think they'll beat SMU or Duke, but they get both those games at home. But then you look at. I mean, they've got 3 losses. They play Florida State on the road at Louisville and on the road at South Carolina. I wouldn't pick Clemson in any of those right now. So you're talking best case 6-6. If you slip up anywhere else, you're missing a bowl. And so. Yeah. And that would be I would say they go 6-6 or 7-5. They have enough talent to beat any one of those 3 teams that we just mentioned. And the way football works, they probably will beat one of those 3 teams that we mentioned. But I wouldn't pick them today. Maybe the most shocking part of all of this to me is, man, Cade just hasn't looked like I thought he would. I had him way higher. I mean, I don't know if he's a top 30 quarterback in college football right now, let alone top 5 or 1 where I had him placed. How bad he's been has been, and I know the run game's not there, and the offensive lines looked weak, and all those things. They'll blame the play calling, and there's a lot of issues, right? Just a million problems with him. But man, Cade's looked pretty bad too. And when your quarterback doesn't have it, your defense can't stop anybody, which we all thought they had a ton of talent. It's hard to do anything with it with that kind of effort and intensity.
It's eerily similar to what Michigan is right now, different pieces, but Michigan, and we'll talk about the game against Nebraska in a little bit, is that Michigan does best when they're playing with a lead. If you have to play catch up, that team is dead in the water. Clemson is eerily similar. In what universe should Cade Klubnik be throwing the ball 61 times?
Yeah.
Syracuse jumped on him early. Credit to Fran Brown and company. Everybody gets to take a shower after the game now. But like, goodness gracious, this was pathetic. And you still average 6.2 yards per carry. Adam Randall still had a nice game at the end of the day, but like everything was garbage time, trying to catch up, and you're just floundering. And if your defense doesn't do anything, you're handcuffed there. Seriously, hats off to Syracuse, because Steve Angeli goes down. Apparently he's lost for the season. Ricky Collins comes in, doesn't do anything earth-shattering, but just kind of steers the ship. 4.1 yards per carry for Syracuse. Jonte Cook is this reclamation project for the Orange that's like, man, not a lot of people thought he'd ever get it together. So there's a lot of bright spots here for Syracuse, and a team that was very beatable for Clemson. This is a defensive line for Syracuse that got picked over in the transfer portal this past cycle. So I don't know what's going on at Clemson. I'll say this, the SMU game, that's not a slam dunk. I don't even know if the Boston College game is a slam dunk. And the other thing, I've texted you guys about this a little bit in terms of, I don't think Dabo is going to get fired in the middle of the season. I think they're going to have him for many years to come. His buyout is enormous. But there is an element, I think, to today's player that, if your coach gets fired in the middle of the season, you can redshirt, hop in the portal, and be somewhere else pretty darn quick. So how many teams around the country are keeping that in the back of their head?
Yeah.
I personally think that the bottom line is that you can't teach heart and you can't teach physicality in games like this. And one team showed up and was physical. And another team showed up last week and their home turf at Bobby Dodd Stadium and was physical. And you went through the motions. You're more talented than Syracuse. You're more talented than Georgia Tech. I have no problem saying that. But talent isn't the only thing that wins in college football. We have watched as Appalachian State, as an FCS program, went up to Ann Arbor and took down the number one team in the country. We watched as Appalachian State beat Jimbo Fisher. We have seen in years past FCS programs go against Power 4 programs, not Group of 5 schools, Power 4 teams, and make it a battle. They're better rosters. It's all about the heart and the intensity that you play with and you practice with. And I can tell you this, the way that Syracuse shows up on Saturday is the way they show up on Monday in the film room. It's the way they show up on Tuesday in the practice facility. It's the way that they go about the workouts. It's the way they go about making an impact on the community. And the same thing goes for Brent Key down in Georgia Tech. And it's why those programs are going to have to pay their coaches an illustrious contract extension, because if they're going to be sought after. If you don't have that physical fight, why even bother showing up? Because at least when you show that part, you at least can say, we did everything possible to win this football game. You didn't even try if you were Clemson at half the times. And that's the part that's the more infuriating situation.
Fran Brown had some interesting comments last week, not to rehash them, but I'll even own up to this and publicly do it when I privately crapped on him. I texted you guys like, man, Fran's kind of weird, right? Like some of this stuff he's saying this week about the portal or about, loving on Dabo or Clemson, maybe he just had it all calculated. Maybe it was just a lot. Like, so shout out Fran Brown. Look, I'm owning up to that publicly, even though I didn't say it publicly. But shout out to them. Yeah, you're right. Say it again.
No, I was gonna say when you win games, you can be weird. That's
Dude,
just the bottom line.
None of that stuff matters. I mean,
none of that matters anymore.
Yeah, the Michigan fans are in here. Harbaugh's the biggest weirdo of all time. Yeah, but you win games, it doesn't matter, right? Like it just, so what, right? Doesn't matter what you have to do to get those wins, but still weird. All right, from one guy that's cooked to another, right? If I'd have told you when I did bold predictions and I knew that we'd be sitting here on September 21st, my bold prediction should have been that Florida State will have more wins than both Florida and Clemson combined, so that you guys could have just literally spent the last 45 minutes of the show laughing. But that is actually where we find ourselves. Florida 1-3, Clemson 1-3, and Florida Miami on Saturday night.